This regular meeting of the Detroit Lakes City Council is called to order. And at this time, I'd like to invite all of you to please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The minutes of the regular city council meeting held November 14th, 2017 are before the council. Is there anyone in the council or anyone in the audience that wishes to make any changes to the minutes as printed? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes as printed from the regular city council meeting held on November 14th, 2017. Discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The consent agenda is before the council, and all items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered separately in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the council that wants to either remove or add an item to the consent agenda? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as printed. Discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I'm going to jump right to two items to accommodate the two gentlemen from the Boys and Girls Club, at least two anyway, who have to be at another event here shortly. So I'd like to, without objection, like to go to item 6E, and also in conjunction with that, if we could cover item 5J. So let's start with item 6E if we could. And that is under the Public Works Committee. And Jay, would you take that one, please?
Yes, sir. Consideration approving the 30-year lease agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Detroit Lakes, January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2048. We discussed the need for a performance bond, and it would cost them up to another $45,000, so we decided to allow the removal of that as a requirement. Other than that, Public Works recommends approval, and I so move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve a 30-year lease agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Detroit Lakes, beginning January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2048. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. And then if we could go back to item 5J, and if I could call on either Jamie or Matt, please.
Consideration to a resolution approving the parking variance and variance to allow a building height of 40 feet to construct a building in an R2 district at 150 Richmond Road. We discussed this yesterday at the CDC meeting, and we recommend approval on this.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve a resolution approving the parking variance and a variance to allow a building height of 40 feet to construct a new Boys and Girls Club. Discussion on the motion. Bruce?
Were you going to have,
I was going to ask if Pat or Ron wanted to say anything, but we could go ahead and vote on the motion and then. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Pat or Ron, do you want to make a few comments since you're on TV and the newspaper and the radio is here?
brag a little bit?
Yeah.
Patrick Peterman, Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club. First of all, I want to thank the City Council for your partnership with this project. I just wanted to give you a little snapshot of where we've been and where we're going, as this is starting to move very quickly for us now. So the club is celebrating 60 years of existence this year. At one point, before I became the Executive Director, the board at that time was considering shutting the doors of the Boys and Girls Club. When I became the Executive Director 12 years ago, we were working on a $185,000 budget, averaging 34 kids a day and serving 15 kids a hot meal. Fast forward to 2017, our current annual budget is $775,000. We're employing 22 people at the club. We've opened a second unit in our neighbors to the east in Perham. Our average daily attendance in Detroit Lakes today is 157 kids. January 2nd through December 8th of this year, we served 43,113 meals and snacks. In October of this year alone, 254 different kids walked through our doors at the Boys and Girls Club. The impact on our community is great at this time. Tonight, you've taken action which allows us to move forward with our building project. Our capital campaign began in June, and we are at 80% of our goal to date. So we have a few things to do yet, but by the end of this week, we will have a general contractor hired and start moving forward with the building project and tear down the old facility in April and May of next year. The timeline of being open in March or April of 2019. So I want to thank you for all your efforts and your partnership with us, with the Boys and Girls Club, and we'll make this club bigger and better and serve more kids.
Thanks. Any questions for Pat?
Thank you.
Very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Most of the other folks in the audience, as I polled before the meeting, are here for various items on the Community Development Committee. So without objection, if I could have the Community Development Committee agenda at this time. So Matt and Jamie.
Okay. 4A, public hearing, let's jump down to 5A. Consideration of resolution approving the variance to allow less than the required 6-foot-high screening between RM use and R2 area for an apartment project at 226 Stone Creek Drive, otherwise known as Stone Brook Apartments. This came through the Planning Commission, CDC. From feedback we heard from both sides, we both thought that a 6-foot fence may not be appropriate all the way around. They're talking about doing some vegetation screening, which the neighbors were in favor for. On the west side of the property, the neighbors and the developer thought it would be best to do a 6-foot-high fence. As I so move this.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Motion's been made and seconded to approve a resolution approving the variance to allow less than the required 6-foot-high screening between RM and R2 at 226 Stone Creek Drive, Stone Brook Apartments. Discussion on the motion?
Mayor,
Bruce?
I will need to abstain on this item.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And abstain?
Yes, aye.
Okay, Matt.
Okay. Item B, consideration to a resolution to approve the variance to allow a lot width of 106 feet instead of 135 feet for construction of a twin home at 616 Westlake Drive. This was discussed at Planning and CDC. I believe it was recommended without, and I approve. Recommend, excuse me.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve a variance to allow a lot width of 106 feet instead of 135 feet for construction of a twin home at 616 Westlake Drive.
Mayor?
Discussion.
Yeah, I'll just, since Larry's not here, I'll give a little brief background on this. Came to Planning Commission. This is the Viking Resort, so they're gonna take all the buildings down at the Viking Resort and put a twin home in there. So it certainly meets our code requirements, and the variance is just to allow it's a big lot, but it's not, doesn't meet for the twin home they want. They need 135 feet, so this is the variance for 106 feet out in front, but as you go back, the lot widens out quite a bit.
Further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Item 6, consideration to a resolution approving the conditional use permit for a helipad at 1027 Washington Avenue, Essentia Health. There was discussion about this, questions were answered. At the Planning Commission as well as CDC, we recommend this for approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the conditional use permit for a helipad at 1027 Washington Avenue for Essentia Health, St. Mary's. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Item D, consideration to a resolution approving the variance of a subdivision regulation to allow a lot division by meters and bounds of a tract of less than 5 acres at Highway 10 and McHugh Road. This was discussed last night. The CDC recommended for approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a variance for subdivision regulation to allow a lot division by meets and bounds of a tract less than 5 acres at Highway 10 and McHugh Road. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries.
Item E, consideration to a resolution approving the preliminary and final plat of Common Interest Community Number 86, otherwise known as the Landing on Little Detroit. This was discussed, and the CDC recommended for approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the preliminary and final plat of Common Interest Community Number 86, the Landing on Little Detroit. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries.
Item F, I'm gonna take items F, H, and I, which are a request for variances at 412 South Shore Drive, 1941 Longridge Road, and a conditional use permit at 1941 Longridge Road. These items were discussed at planning and at CDC. They had a mixed vote at both. I did speak with City Attorney Charlie Ramstead today, and after that discussion, I'd like to refer these back to Planning Commission and with a recommendation that he appear at Planning Commission and discuss that with them. So that is my recommendation, that we defer or refer all 3 of those items back to Planning Commission.
So F, H, and I,
Correct.
you'd like to refer back to the committee.
Back to the
Is there anyone-
Planning Commission.
Back to the Planning Commission.
Yep.
Is there anyone on the council or anyone in the audience that would be not good with that or would object to us referring this back to the Planning Commission? Yes, sir.
I'm Justin Scallon on Unit F, that's me.
Okay.
I guess I didn't know why that they recommended going back to the planning commission.
Okay.
The recommendation is because I felt that I did not have all the facts that I needed to have in front of me at the time that I made the decision I made last night at CDC. I felt there was perhaps a similar situation at planning. I think it is important that the city attorney appear and represent, maybe or just present some additional information. Those are complicated projects.
Sure, and did they say what some of the information was that they might need? Because I know I had the site plan and all the dimensions of the site and everything on there, so I didn't know what else I needed to bring, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that you didn't present that.
Okay.
I don't think that's really the issue. It's other issues.
Justin, is it your plan to start building in the spring or?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. And I realize that there's time to go through the winter
Right.
and get all that.
So if we refer it back to the Planning Commission, this is not going to delay your project?
No, not at all.
Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
there is a planning commission on the 28th. I think, Kelsey, do we have enough time to put these back on for the 28th?
I believe so. We don't have to send out any notifications unless you're gonna do a hearing. But I don't think it's proposed for a hearing. If it's just putting it on the agenda, we put it on the agenda.
Okay. Well, is there any objection by the council to referring these back to the Planning Commission? I haven't heard anybody in the audience, so without objection, we're gonna defer these back to the Planning Commission.
Okay,
And we're gonna try to have that at the regular Planning Commission meeting in December, which is the 4th Thursday, which is December, probably Christmas Eve for all I know.
28th.
But we should make sure if we're gonna have our city attorney there, can you make the 28th?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And then,
Just a procedural thing, we'll have to notify the applicants, for the extension of the 60-day rule, if we're abutting that, so.
I know in one case at 1941 Longridge Road, there are neighbors that have concerns. How would they be notified?
I mean, we can send out another notification. I mean, we've had the public hearing already, unless we're proposing another public hearing on it.
And it would be put on the agenda.
And I would assume that the two gentlemen in the audience would let the folks know that it's back on the agenda on the 28th.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like we're not gonna send out letters to everybody again, so maybe Dick and Lynn, if you could let your neighbors know if there are other folks that are concerned about it.
Is there, excuse me,
Yeah.
is there any reason why we couldn't hold another public hearing? And I don't know that Charlie was there available for questions, nor was he yesterday at CDC, and I think that might be helpful.
The only issue on the public hearing would be notice requirements, because then we do have notice requirements, and I'm not sure where we sit as far as, I mean, to have the public hearing on the 28th, another public hearing. Because then we do have to send out notice.
So it would have to be in January.
I honestly don't know offhand whether we have, Stacy, do you know if we can get a notice out now? I think we're a little late for the planning commission
I
in
think
December.
you're a minimum of 14 days notice.
Right.
So it's the 12th.
So they'd have to go up tomorrow. And I don't know the volume or,
I mean, that's what I would say is, you know, if that's possible to do from a time frame standpoint, but that would be the only issue.
Well, I'd rather have a public hearing so that all the neighbors or anybody concerned with either of these projects would be notified that we're gonna reconsider this. So that'd be my preference.
Then
Did both of these require public hearings, or was it just the one? Both of them? Okay, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Well, let's set another public hearing. If we can do it in December, we'll do so. If not, it'll have to be in January. We don't have that 60-day rule or anything.
we do,
We do, but we'd be okay in January.
we're gonna have to notify the applicant that we may have to extend that 60 days.
We get one extension, and so we just have to send a notice.
Okay, so we're either gonna have a public hearing at the planning commission this month or next month, depending if we can duly notify everybody for this month, right?
We'll make it work for the 28th, I think we'll,
Okay,
one way or another.
okay? All right, we'll continue on then. We're gonna defer action on F, H, and I under the.
Excuse me,
Yeah, Lynn.
it's not clear to me what you just deferred.
We deferred any action tonight. We're going to send the two matters back to the planning commission. And they meet on the 28th. And we're gonna notify everybody again that there's gonna be a public hearing on the 28th.
Is one of those matters the Wheatman petition?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, let's move forward.
Item G, consideration to a resolution approving the amended variance for Longridge Resort at 2000 Longridge Road. Kelsey, I don't know if you care to speak to this one, since it's amended.
I can.
Okay, Bruce?
Yeah, so this again came to the planning commission. This is we had to do an amended variance because the original variance they had was for, I don't remember all the items off the top of my head, but they're now going to put up, they're not going to add any more impervious surface. But now, you know, if you remember the original, they were going to have a second floor on their top of this Longridge, the Longridge restaurant. And now up there, they're actually going to have a couple of bathrooms. And then they're going to have a catwalk, or I don't know if you want to call it catwalk, that goes out, and they're going to have a elevator that comes up, so that people can come up to the elevator if they want to, instead of walking up the stairs, and then come over to the second floor. So that's the main items they changed, was putting in an elevator and putting in a bathroom, and which some of us older folks suggested to them at the original hearing, so I was glad to hear that they were taking care of the old folks. Meaning me, I wasn't making any reference to anybody else.
Okay.
And as Alderman Imholt had alluded to, they're not adding any impervious surface, anything like that. But this is an amended variance. This is recommended for approval, and I so move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve an amended variance for Longridge Resort. Discussion, further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Item K, consideration to approving the purchase of 3 parcels of land abutting Detroit Mountain Recreation Area in the amount of $687,000 with funds received from the Legacy Grant. CDC discussed this, and we recommend for approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the purchase of 3 parcels of land which abuts the Detroit Mountain Recreation Area. Purchase price is $687,000, and those funds were received from the Legacy Grant. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries.
Item L, consideration to the second reading and adoption of ordinance 416, amending city code 1004, building code relative to permits and fees for decks and platforms. This came through CDC. We recommend approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance number 416, which amends the city code 1004 building code relative to permits and fees for decks and platforms. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Anything else on that?
That's it, Your Honor.
Got through that pretty good. Is there anyone else in the audience? I see Marty and Mary are here. What item are they on the agenda?
B.
Yep, 60.
Well, let's just move right into the Public Works. Jay, why don't you just go ahead and start from the top, is there for a second?
Sounds good. Item 8, Lee Kessler showed up to discuss the removal of stop signs on the former Airport Road and Longview Drive intersection. After a discussion, we recommended removing the 2 stop signs on Longview Drive as Airport Road is now closed. Public Works recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to remove the stop signs on the former Airport Road and Longview Drive intersection, so I don't know if we need any further explanation. You won't have to stop there anymore if you're going out to Long Lake. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
We also looked at the speed study on Longview Drive, and we're going to take a look at that, the speed restrictions on next month's agenda.
Okay.
Item B is consideration of resolution accepting the preliminary engineering report and setting a public hearing for January 9th, 2018 for Lake Forest 7th edition street utility improvements. Public Works recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a resolution accepting a preliminary engineering report and setting a public hearing for January 9th, 2018 for Lake Forest 7th edition street and utility improvements. Discussion on the motion. Marty or Mary, you got anything to add to it? Otherwise, we'll see you on the 9th of January. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I'm just gonna jump back, Jay, to, we had one public hearing that I should take care of. So at this time, I'm gonna adjourn the regular meeting and call to order a public hearing to give consideration to the granting of off-sale 3.2 liquor license for Holiday Station Stores at 303 Frazee Street, Detroit Lakes. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the issue of granting an off-sale 3.2 liquor license to Holiday Station Store? Hearing none, that public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to grant an off-sale 3.2 liquor license to Holiday Station Stores. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And we'll jump back to Jay then.
So item C, consideration of a resolution authorizing a preliminary engineering report for sanitary sewer and water main improvements for the Broad Lawn Estates. John, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Real briefly, Mayor and Council, we're, Broad Lawn Estates is a small subdivision off north of North Tower Road. The city's received a petition from all of the property owners up there requesting sewer and water. So this is really the first step in the process to evaluating the feasibility of that. We're asking for authorization to prepare the report tonight. Now that said, we're going to have a informational neighborhood meeting with these folks on the 21st of this month at 5:30, I believe. where we'll talk about it a little bit more with them, make sure that they're aware of what they're asking for and what some of the conditions will be. If all things point upward after that meeting, we'll prepare the report and likely bring that back to the council in January for review.
So Public Works recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to authorize a preliminary engineering report for sanitary sewer and water main improvements for Broadlawn Estates. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. I should ask if there's anyone else in the audience that has anything they want to bring up? Otherwise, we'll just keep going in the normal sequence.
All right, item D, consideration of the resolution authorizing the preliminary engineering report for sanitary sewer and water main improvements for County Road 131. Mr. Pratt?
Sure. Again, it's real similar to the previous item. We've had a property owner, one in this case, request the extension of sewer and water to their property, Foltz Trucking in this case. They'd like water and sewer extended down 131. Currently, we're at that intersection of Tower Road and Stony Road with it. We've met with members of Foltz Trucking, talked about it. They're still very much on board. This would involve some assessments, that property as well as some postponed assessments, properties that are outside the city limits. So this is authorizing a study for that. And this does tie, I want to mention the council, it ties to the fact that that road's in tough shape. Becker County's wanting to redo that road, and it's been sort of dragging their feet, waiting for us to decide whether we're going to do this now or we're going to wait 20 or 30 years to do it. So that's this study.
Okay. So Public Works recommends approval of this preliminary engineering report, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded, authorizing a preliminary engineering report for sanitary sewer and water main improvements for County Road 131. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Let's do item G first, then we're gonna go back to F. Item G, consideration of the request submitted by Destiny Levin to hold her wedding ceremony on the city beach on June 23rd. She's rented the pavilion and wants to get married on the beach. Public Works recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to allow a wedding on the beach on June 23rd, 2018. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
So item F is consideration to approving the AFSCME union contract for 2018 and 19. We're gonna defer that one to the Finance Committee.
Yep, and would you like me to handle it now, Your Honor?
Sure.
Okay, so
We're gonna buy
finance.
some time before 6:01 PM.
True. Well, I'll try to drone on a little bit. So, anyway, the finance committee's been working with the city administrator on negotiating a contract with the AFSCME union. And today, Kelsey brought us an agreement that met the parameters that we had established over the last couple of months. I believe it was emailed to the members of the council earlier, right, Kelsey? So everybody has at least an electronic copy of it. I have a paper copy here. Anyway, we reviewed the agreement with the city administrator and finance committee. It again met the parameters that we had talked about, and so I'm recommending approval of the AFSCME union contract. The finance committee recommended approval of the AFSCME union contract for 2018 and 2019, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the AFSCME union contract for 2018 and 2019. AFSCME represents predominantly our public works employees, is that correct?
Public Works and Liquor Store.
Liquor store, okay. All right, discussion on the motion?
Mayor?
Yeah, Bruce.
Dan, I'm just wondering, you know, for public information, if we could kind of give the parameters of what our settlement was in terms of what the percentages are and
Sure.
and how that goes forward, if we could just summarize that.
Sure, I'll actually have Kelsey do it, so he's been working on the details of it, so.
I guess the main thing is always wages and health insurance, so I'll start there. Wages for the contract are 2 3/4%, basically increase for both 18 and 19. For the health insurance, we're going to a flat dollar contribution to where the employer, which is the city, would contribute up to $1,200 per month for family coverage in 2018 and $1,275 for 2019. Along with that, there was a variety of language changes. The ASME contract, there was also a uniform allowance provision that was changed to $300 per year. Again, some language changes, but I think that's the highlights.
Okay. We need to vote, right?
Yes.
Further questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So, I think we got through Jay's stuff, let's jump now, we'll continue on with Dan and the Finance Committee.
Okay.
Maybe 7C,
We could do.
do 7C.
7C. What's happening is that state came and reviewed our building permit fees. Anyway, we weren't having any of our building permit fee going towards review of residential permits. So they required us to add on a fee for doing that. We wanted to keep it minimal, so we're looking at a 10%, a fee of 10% of the total permit fee being used for, is it plan review? Plan
It's
review.
a residential plan.
So anyway, we reviewed this at the, again, Finance Committee. Made sense, so we're recommending approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to amend section 210 of our city code relative to adopting a residential plan review fee, and that fee shall be 10% of the building permit fee. Discussion on the motion? Bruce?
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
They changed it because the state gets a piece of it? Is that why they changed it?
As far as the state doesn't get a piece of it.
The
but
state
they-
don't get part of the plan review fee. Again, part of this kind of audit process of our building permit process. If you remember earlier, there was a second reading on an ordinance change to our building code. That was, again, part of that process of when they kind of audited our building official process. The other thing they mentioned is we do a plan review fee for commercial permits, so 65% of the building permit fee is used as a commercial plan review fee. We never charge a residential plan review fee, and in state building code, it says that we're supposed to charge for a residential plan review fee. So, proposing, I guess, a modest plan.
I don't know why they care, but that's what they.
Well, I thought it was because they wanted a piece of it, so I'm sorry if I implied I was dumping on the state, but that's usually what happens.
It is surprising, so.
You know, you pick equally on a lot of different entities, so.
Yes, no. Discrimination.
Further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Dan, why don't you go ahead and take the other union contract, which is.
Public safety, Your Honor. Yep, 8A.
Would you?
So we also, there's actually 3 unions that we need to negotiate with. The second one that we have before you tonight is for the law enforcement people. It's the Law Enforcement Labor Services Union. It covers our police. Again, maybe I'll have Kelsey do a little review before I make the motion of what the parameters are on this again, so.
Mayor and council, again, just one thing I want to point out is LELS is new to the city of Detroit Lakes. Used to be, the police department used to be represented by the Teamsters Union. They switched this year to LELS, so it's our first bargaining agreement with them. Again, basically, hitting the high points, it's basically the same terms as our AFSCME contract that was approved earlier. Again, the wage increase for 18 and 19 are 2 3/4%. Health insurance is capped at $1,200 per month for 18 and $1,275 for 19. Again, we had some language changes. Their uniform allowance is the same as it is in 17, there's no increase for 18 or 19. However, we did do some language changes that allows them to carry over half of that amount, well, about half that amount, $450 each year. Again, well, I think those are the high points. Some of the language changes, the grievance policy was reviewed, something that is more similar to the LELS grievance policy. Again, that was reviewed by Flaherty and Hood. Again, I think just point out, I know this was emailed out earlier today, and again, we reviewed it through the finance committee. We went through all the changes earlier today. Apologize for not getting it out earlier. I know we had it on the agenda, but literally didn't hear back until this afternoon from both the union groups that they approved the language, approved the contract, so we emailed them out as soon as we could.
Yep, and both of these contracts would be effective January 1st, so we wanted to move them forward. And anyway, so the Finance Committee did review the contract for the police officers, recommended approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the LELS union contract for 2018 and 19. Discussion on the motion?
Just want to add something, Your Honor, about the insurance on here. Kelsey did a lot of work in trying to clean up the language on that so that I think the city can and the employees can react more quickly when there's changes by the insurance company, but with full input of the employees. So just good job on that. It's a lot of work. People are often concerned about the health insurance, but
Kelsey did a good job, and you've got some other things standardized, and so, yeah, good work. So.
Yeah, and I would just ditto that, good work. If people remember the last time we had union contracts, we were actually a year into it before we approved them. So I think whether it was good negotiating on both sides or whatever, but compliments to everybody for getting it done.
As long as we're talking union contracts and salaries and whatnot.
Your Honor, we need to vote on that. I interrupted
it
before we voted, so sorry.
All in favor of the motion? I'm sorry, Pat. Go
One
ahead.
last question, Kelsey, I'm assuming you did our homework, and that's kind of industry average as far as increase?
Yeah, for wages, cities, you know, I think the average is, or what you see is common out there right now around the state between 2.5% to 3%. Again, there's a lot of miscellaneous ones out there that are anywhere between there, but anywhere between 2.5% to 3%.
Well, in fact, one of the things that Kelsey brought us at the Finance Committee was a chart showing over there 25 different cities on there, showing what the rates of pay were between the cities, and then, so we were able to take and compare that before we went into negotiations as to where we wanted to be at.
Thank you.
We're very competitive.
Okay, further discussion, otherwise I'm gonna call the question, which I forgot to do. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Should we take care of item 11B, which is approving the revisions to the city's personnel policy?
Be happy to, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
It's right in, there's a theme going here,
Yeah, we
so.
do.
In your packet is, are several changes to the personnel policy, including an updated equal opportunities section, the same changes in language for health insurance that were instituted for the law enforcement people. What else, Kelsey?
A lot of it was just updating it and standardizing some of the language, so.
Yeah, so a revised section on safety glasses, just cleaning that up and specifying what's covered. Some information on the post-retirement healthcare savings plan and so forth. Anyway, it basically brings things into line with the, again, particularly the LELS contract. Cleans up some language that applies across the whole city. And anyway, so again, we reviewed this at Finance Committee, made sense, we recommend approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve revisions to the city's personnel policy. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Jamie, let's jump back to the liquor gambling control. please.
One item, consideration to approving the sponsorship. Consideration to approving the sponsorship of the 2018 Let's Go Fishing Program. The committee recommends a $500 donation, and I so moved.
Motion's been made and seconded to donate $500 from the liquor store to the 2018 Let's Go Fishing Program. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Did somebody complain you weren't loud enough or something? I see you got,
Exactly.
okay. Well, you don't want unhappy constituents, you know. Okay, Kelsey, we have 11A, which is consideration to designating polling locations. Do you want to tell us what that is?
You know, that's usually a glory topic. Again, these are the same polling places that we've used in the past, so again, we're required since we have an election coming up next year that we have to adopt or designate our polling places before the first of the year.
So, same places that you voted last time, you can vote this time, right?
Correct.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a resolution designating the polling locations in Detroit Lakes for the 2018 election. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. I don't have recommendations for the council for the vacancy created by Lee Kessler leaving our planning commission after his three-year terms have been used up, and I also don't have a recommendation for you on Dan Josephson's position on the park board, right? But I will in January. But the rest of the individuals listed on the agenda, Bob Luizzo on the planning commission, Sean Nygaard on the planning commission, Mariah Roofer on the planning commission, Kim Betcher on the park board, Marcus Locker on the park board, Jeff Perkins on the Public Utilities Commission, and J.L. Tucker on the Public Utilities Commission have all agreed that they'd like to continue, and I would recommend that we reappoint all of those individuals to those positions.
So, sorry.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint the individuals I just cited for the various boards and commissions. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We're getting close to 6:01, but we're running out of stuff too. A couple of announcements, we might as well keep going with that. We did have a meeting this morning with the Becker County Highway Committee to discuss a couple of joint county-city projects. I thought that meeting was very fruitful and went well. On December 18th at 5 to 6 p.m. here in the council chambers, there will be a Westlake Drive open house event. That's Monday, December 18th. There's a public informational meeting. Go ahead, Bruce.
Well, on that December 18th, as long as we got a little bit of time, I want to just put a plug in too,
Sure.
the council members. So besides that open house from 5 to 6 on Westlake Drive, the Planning Commission at 6:30 will be working with RDG on a land use for basically updating our comprehensive plan. So the Planning Commission will be there. We've invited the Development Authority and certainly any council members that would want to come, I guess, if we notice it, I assume. But that's kind of looking at where do we want things, where is our city going to grow and where do we want things. So if you want to be involved in that process, have some input, whether you can come for all of it or part of it, we sure encourage council members, as well as it's open to the public too, certainly.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because I would meant to have that on here and I didn't get on it.
6:30, you said?
6:30, so it'll be right after the Westlake Drive, and then it's with RDG since they're doing that, and then we just combine them, so.
Thank you.
Also on December 21st at 5:30 here in the council chambers, there will be a public informational meeting regarding potential sanitary and sewer and water main improvements for the Broadlawn Estates plat. The next joint governance meeting is scheduled for January 2nd, 7 a.m., and we will be hosting that meeting right here at the council chambers. The 2018 joint governance meeting dates are listed below that in their location. And then our city council meeting dates are also listed. Remember that we have our required annual meeting on January 2nd, and that'll be at 5 o'clock, right? And then our regular scheduled January meetings on the 9th of January. City staff have any other items that need to be brought before the council? Brad?
Well, Mayor and Council, I'd just like to inform you that we have not forgotten about the outdoor rinks and flooding. It's just that with the warm temperatures and that right now, we're having a little trouble to get it to freeze. As you know, one indicator is the lakes are still open, the ground's not frozen up. And I came there day out by Munson Lake, and I know Santa Melissa, and maybe Detroit Lake is frozen, but they've been open. Had white caps on Munson Lake yesterday yet. And we intend to, Monday is gonna be in the mid-30s to high 30s, so we thought of flooding, but we'll wait till next week. We really try to have it ready for the school breaks and stuff, but I'm not gonna guarantee that. And then as long as I have a few minutes, and I like to talk, if somebody is looking for a wonderful part-time job, have I got a deal for you? You can drive a Zamboni, you can drive a broom, you can drive a sweeper, you can drive a snowblower, and you get to sit in a warming house and drink your coffee and read a book and help all those kids put on skates. We are looking for some help in our outdoor rinks. We're struggling a little bit getting people to come in and work, so if anybody in the community is looking for some great part-time work, have we got a deal for you? And so get a hold of me, the City Hall, Public Works Department, Tom Goulon, our Park Supervisor, and we'll put you in touch and tell you what that job description entails.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because you and I were talking about that the other day, and perfect.
Yep.
So
Thank you for giving
this
that.
person really just needs to be able to talk a lot and drink coffee, so I would say Council Zeman is a perfect place.
I have to tell you, I'm even open to that. No,
He's not here to defend
He'd be a
himself.
wonderful person down there, and it really is. I did it when I was in college. You do get to meet a lot of the kids, you help tighten skates, and, you know, we do have free skates there that we allow people to use, and a lot of that is just helping those young kids and supervise, just a supervision, as you know, but it's a great warming house, a great rinks. We have 2 hockey rinks, 1 free skating, and it is well attended. We have thousands of kids and people use that. If we don't get enough people, right now we really only have 1 outside person. We might have to cut back hours, is what I'm warning the community and the council.
Well,
And it's
unfortunately,
not from wanting to or budget, it's because we can't
get people.
cover it, yeah. So, if you know anybody in that, we're here to help.
Well, I'm gonna have no choice but to adjourn temporarily until 6:01, because we can't start our.
Your Honor, could I just make a comment?
Sure.
So tooling around downtown here, I just want to say the Public Works has done a great job decorating downtown. I'm not the only one that thinks so. I have suspect taste, but you know, my wife told me that it was pretty. A couple other people, so nice job on that.
It does
It's
look
very
nice,
bright,
though.
yeah.
It's very nice, and I know a lot of the merchants have, you know, stepped it up. on
They
what
really
they've been
have.
doing
Patty
too, you know.
LaBar has really driven that. We do, when you get everybody step forward like that, the business owners, the pride we take in it, of course, we have to step up and help. And thanks to the council, we're able to do that. And Patty LaBar is very instrumental, and all the businesses, the mayor said, have really stepped forward.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, well, let's just take a 10-minute break, and then we'll reconvene at 6 o'clock, and we'll get ready for our 6:01 Truth and Taxation hearing. Meeting's temporarily adjourned.
You need 6 members, whether there's 5 here or not, you need 6 members.
We have one guy finally applied.
It's 6.
2/3, yeah. Right.
6,
Yeah.
Even if there's only 6 here, it's still gonna be 6.
Then it's unanimous.
Or more, actually. Neil's good.
So are you gonna have anybody else on tomorrow, or?
Yes.
I was gonna say, damn, I can see if he wants to come. Or I can just
So
wait.
it's been what?
Yes.
See.
Been 6 years.
I was calling upstairs.
He's riding bareback on Variance.
Well.
Mayor will talk about it tomorrow. And I'm hoping,
One of them,
especially we're getting a crowd. We don't have
those armadillos involved, I think those two kind of get some of their pals together and do a show. This particular group is just a show. From a lot of different bands, the same house.
Waiting for it to.
Oh, yeah.
Very Christmas. Love
I tried to go.
I haven't been in there since.
I'm good to go for Andy, are you looking for work today? Are you looking for work? Are you looking for work at Tax Levy? Here we go.
Taxation. Oh, there's a good candidate right there.
Doing truth and taxation.
I got a deal for you.
You got short staff.
Hey, you've been trained on the demo, we live here. Yeah, there we go.
Andy lives in Clarence.
There you go.
Got sports back. My taxes are going up 25. Doesn't mean anything.
No.
Well, you don't know.
That would be odd. You would know. Or am I just talking to this? Nobody's.
Mine went way up.
Same old house, you know. I know.
Well, my house, my fence this year, and
Yeah, I said,
had to replace the order of the furnace today, and
I replaced my toilet. Friday.
what's the one that's
Left Sunday afternoon, just got back.
No.
the guy that spoke?
Yeah. Sing those things that yeah, there's nothing new there.
You gotta have a variance.
You should try.
No, because on January, I'm looking at my schedule for January, I think I'm on 3 weeks.
Variances for those or?
There's possibly, so I'm not pushing my,
That's one of the slides. Isn't it?
I just felt bad yesterday. Because
Okay.
I went from Reed's meetings all day.
Is that an important one?
It's just really small.
He's from the first one. Cut down there tonight. All the family wants to door unloading across the street.
Miss Carol.
Excuse me, sir.
Quite a few.
Radio station.
Sometimes I have airport stories in the paper.
Still trying to come up with material every day.
Long story.
Long story short.
As long as you avoid those evenings when the winds are 45.
Pretty good.
There's somebody having a bonfire someplace.
Community says that we get 5 days.
That testing
Project.
examination of the facts. But it's not clear. Just because it's very.
No, it's not. Public hearings. One of those months. It's hearings and stuff. Speak cleaning up assessments for construction
So I think this is. He still went through the same exact.
Well, I've done it.
Staff report, the resolution, he still never got the same report.
Most of them are Minnesota, and there are some from Detroit.
Yeah, I look at staff, I wasn't there at that meeting, so I know that last year we did
Stuff like that.
So the numbers are really.
Generally, we try to do
Chairperson of the commission. I'm waiting to hear if the seasoned officer gets it.
the other
time.
They want to split
That's a 5-week window.
There's what you can.
Yeah. If you're in a crunch, everybody, every time a decision is made, it's and now I have that part to print out.
Just what you wanted to know.
How we done? What's our official time?
It's 60 seconds away, maybe.
5:59.
Stacy, you round up
We
that trouble?
should have a sergeant at arms around everybody else.
Bruce. Yep. A minute.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
That was one of the funniest comments I think I have heard in a long time.
Is it on?
That way they all look like, look at that.
It is.
Yeah, Franklin. This is
Well, you said it should load up, and it doesn't load up.
It must be Sam. And some, yeah. Somebody type in Carol.
The fire guys,
Oh.
keeping us safe.
Okay. Must be 6 on
Is it 6:01?
It is up there.
Okay, that's the official clock. Doesn't keep very good time, but
It is, 6:01.
6:01. Regular meeting of the Detroit City Council is called back to order, and at this time, I'm going to turn over the program to our city administrator, Kelsey Clem, for our 2018 budget and tax levy, truth and taxation hearing. And Kelsey?
Well, Finance Officer Pam Slifka is unable to be here tonight, so you get stuck with the B team, which is me. I just got a few slides to kind of walk through this. First of all, just an introduction, why we're even having this hearing. We are required by state statute to have the hearing. Again, it has to occur after 6 o'clock and after November 24th. And ultimately, after this, we'll talk about actually approving the budget and levy, which we have to have certified to the county by the 28th. Again, per statute, we're required to give some information on the proposed levy and budget, give some time to actually ask questions, so it is a public hearing. And then lastly, I just want to point out, I've had a lot of calls from my neighbors too about property valuation. What this hearing does not do is address property valuation. That's actually a process that occurs earlier in the year. You get a property valuation statement in March saying what your proposed valuation is for the following year. We have a board of review. The dates change a little bit, but usually early May we have the board of review. You have an opportunity to come in and challenge your valuation. And again, I think I've had calls, and I'm one of those people who saw my valuation change by, I think, 20 or 25%. And it's been a little bit of a roller coaster here the last couple of years as the county has transitioned to a new software program for their valuation methods. So again, I saw the same thing that a lot of other people saw. Valuation actually went down for taxes payable in 17. Now they're seeing their valuation go up for taxes payable in 18. And really it's a combination of those things that they're seeing property tax increase for 18. But go to the next slide. This is actually our proposed tax levy. Again, our proposed tax levy for 2018 is the same as our preliminary levy that was set back in September. It's at $5,114,009. It's a 6.2% levy increase over 17. I think I'll go to the next slide and I'll actually break out why, what makes up part of that increase. Before we even started our budgeting process, we received our certified LGA for 2018. And again, before we even started the budget process, we were notified that our LGA payment for 2018 is going to decline by $91,000. So $91,000 translates into about a 2% levy increase. So again, before we even started, we had a 2% levy increase just to be whole. Other increases, full-time police officer, again, we started an additional full-time officer in 17. Later in the year, now in 18, we have the full wage. We have some work comp increases, parks, our airport expansion project. We are ramping up that levy for the future debt service that we're going to pay on the airport project. That's an increase of $45,000. Development Authority, if you remember last year, we actually cut the operating levy for the Development Authority, restoring a part of that operating levy for the Development Authority by $15,000. The Public Works Facility, we've been talking about that for a few years, about increasing the property tax levy a little bit each year to prepare for construction of a new Public Works Facility. That's an increase of $47,500. And then we just have all our general debt obligations. We have an increase of $30,000 in the levy for that. This is a lot of small numbers. Again, this is basically our 2018 budget. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. The two that probably are worth pointing out, the biggest increase again is the airport capital fund. We're doing more of the construction next year for the airport project, so we have a significant budget for that. Again, with the airport project, 90% of that's being paid by the federal government through the FAA. Just about 5% of that's being funded through MnDOT, MnDOT Aeronautics. The remaining 5% is split between the county and the city. We also have the debt service fund is elevated. There's a $5 million outlay there in the budget for 18. That's kind of abnormally large because we have some advanced refundings that we did earlier that we're paying off now the actual principal on it for next year. I have a couple of slides just talking about other revenue sources that impact the city of Detroit Lakes. I already mentioned local government aid. I think it's important to at least look at the local government aid not just from a year-to-year basis from 17 to 18, but look at kind of the history all the way back to 2000. If you look back in 2001, we actually peaked with local government aid. I have the amount here. What I have is between 2001 and 2017, we'll receive just about $800,000 less, which is just about half of what we received in 2001. So if you spread that out over the last 15 years, it's basically about $11 million that we haven't received in local government aid. If you think about some of the things we're talking about dealing with is deferred maintenance and capital replacement of items, $11 million would go a long ways towards street improvements or building improvements. And again, just point out 18, again, we're looking at a reduction of about $90,000. Fortunately, for the city of Detroit Lakes, we also have some successful enterprise funds. Those are basically a direct offset of our property tax levy. First is our electric utility. That pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. There's a $525,000 transfer, and we did some recoding of some of the wages, to maybe more accurate as far as where the wages were coded to. And to offset those changes, the electric utility will make an additional transfer of $60,000 in 18, and that will probably be ongoing. Again, I think everyone knows about our liquor store. We bumped up the fund transfer a little bit from 17 to 18 for our liquor store, up to $490,000. So combined between those two, there's over $1 million of fund transfers that we take in from our enterprise funds to offset our tax levy. Again, you saw what our tax levy was. If we didn't have those enterprise transfers, we'd have a 21% higher tax levy. So we talked about the budget. Now the next is, again, looking at our tax capacity and as far as what's our ability to pay for our levy. What's the tax value within the city of Detroit Lakes? Again, the good news is with the city of Detroit Lakes, we've seen a lot of growth. Again, we saw some of the property valuation fluctuation due to the county. Actually, for next year, with the growth and maybe some correction from the previous year, we're looking at over a 15% tax capacity increase for the city of Detroit Lakes. It's very significant. For 2017, we saw almost no increase. It was basically flatlined. So if I had to surmise, I would say that we probably should have saw a little bit of an increase in 17, a little bit of a modest increase in 18, but instead it was flat in 17 and now a big increase in 18. So what that means, with a 6.2% levy increase, offset by a tax capacity growth of over 15%, we're going to see our tax rate go down. The 2017 tax rate is a little over 44%. We're projecting that to go under 41%, down to 40.86. So just about an 8% decrease of our tax rate. So again, I've talked about property valuations, but what that tax rate means is if your valuation actually stayed the same, you would pay less in city taxes because our tax rate is going down for 18. So now that we have established tax rate, this is the slide that I printed off, or Stacy printed off, because I can't see these numbers, they're quite small, but it's a little bit of a comparison, because again, once we establish what our tax rate is, we can do some comparisons to see how do we compare to some of our neighbors, how do we compare to some other comparable cities. If you want to look at that yellow bar there, that's all the cities' tax rates, and there's 10 cities up there. And one of the things I want to point out too, we had to use 2016 data. Usually by this time we would have the current year data, but the League of Minnesota Cities unveiled the information from the Department of Revenue wasn't available to the League of Minnesota Cities in time for this report. So we had to use 2016 data. For the most part, I think it's helpful for comparison purposes. You can see our 2016 tax rate was just under 42%. And when you compare that to our neighbors and our comparables, I think that comes in as the second lowest. Moorhead is a little bit lower. We just beat Alexandria on this slide by just a smidge. So again, when you compare our tax rate to Fergus Falls, Brainerd, Bemidji, East Grand Forks, Crookston, Thief River Falls, and Alexandria, Baxter, we have a lower tax rate. So again, if you take the same house with the same valuation, whether it's in Fergus Falls, $150,000 house in Fergus Falls or $150,000 house in Detroit Lakes, your taxes would be less in Detroit Lakes for that city tax. The other analysis that I think Pam does, which is interesting, is she looks at how much local government aid each of those cities receives, and then breaks that out and says, all right, how much, take your tax levy plus your LGA per capita and see how much revenue are you producing for city services. And again, we rank 4th out of those 10. So to me, that's almost a measure of efficiency. So basically, think about all the services that we're providing. In some ways, I like to think our services are comparable to a lot of these other cities, but we're doing it at really the 4th lowest revenue per capita dollar. Any questions on that slide? I know there's a lot of
Well, the one I think that stands out, I mean, we would be very comparable to Fergus Falls as a city, and we're getting just under 800,000 LGA, and they're getting 3.6 million. So it's, you know, you kind of scratch your head a little bit there, but the formula is not weighted in our favor.
Well said. So what I try to do here is, now that we have an estimate of what our tax rate is, again, I mentioned estimate because, again, we know what our levy is going to be after the council takes action, but you know, that 15% tax capacity increase, that is an estimate that we received from the county. It always changes a little bit between now and the final, but using the county's tax capacity numbers as an estimate, getting us that tax rate of 40.86, I can do some calculations to figure out what, you know, your tax bill actually would be. Now, I use the word average. Detroit Lakes, I don't know if there's anything that's average, because there's a wide variation of property valuations in Detroit Lakes. But using a $160,000 home, there's basically the tax formula on your left-hand side. You get a market value exclusion if it's a homesteaded property. Again, adjusted market value of $137,000, times it by your class rate of 1, gives a tax capacity of $1,372, times it by your tax rate, you get a city tax bill of $560. Now again, what I put in red there is, if your valuation stayed the same from 17 to 18, you would see a decrease in your city taxes by $48. You see about an 8% decrease because our tax rate is going down. Okay. On the right-hand side, I did a commercial property tax bill of $500,000, $500,000. There's no market value exclusion. Commercial industrial properties have a higher class rate, so they have a tax capacity of $9,250. Times it by the city tax rate, you get a net city taxes of $3,779 for that commercial property. Again, if that commercial property value had if their valuation stayed static between 17 and 18, they would actually see a decrease of their taxes by $327, which is again about 8% decrease in taxes. All right, we're doing good? Okay, last two slides. So what I think is fun to do is, I think it's fun, no one else might think it's fun, but you know, we just talked about how much that $160,000 home pays in city taxes. Now we can actually take a look at what's in our budget and break that out and say, all right, for all the services that the city provides, what's the actual cost per year to provide those services? You see the largest line item up there is our debt service. Now, when I say debt service, think street and utility projects. Okay? Those debt service payments that we make are for street and utility projects. Okay? Next largest line item is actually the police department budget. It's a significant part of our general fund budget. Next is street maintenance. And I think if you combine the street maintenance and the debt service, I think that's about a third of your tax bill. And if you think, you know, about a third of your tax bill goes right to roads and bridges, for whether it's capital maintenance or repair or whatever. I think I'm going to move on from this slide, because the next is, all right, well, that's on an annual basis, but most of us pay bills on a monthly basis, right? So let's take a look at it from a monthly basis, so you can kind of think, oh, you know, that's, you know, how much do I pay for other things? And I think what's interesting when you look at it on a monthly basis, you can see that basically, like, the park service that we have in Detroit Lakes, parks and trails, for less than $3 a month, you get the amenities of our park district and our trail system. Library is under $3, $2.69 a month to have a library in the city of Detroit Lakes. Again, this is a $160,000 home. Let's look back at that police department. For less than $9 a month, you get 24-hour, 7-day-a-week police coverage. Doesn't seem too bad when you actually break it down and say, how much are these services costing me on a monthly basis? I gotta give a shout out to the fire department, they're a heck of a deal, less than $1 a month. Again, I think that's a pretty good deal. You know, we have some things for the sports arena and our community center on there too. Snow removal, it's less than $2 a month. Think about if anyone pays to have their driveway plowed, it's gonna cost you more than $2 a month, and that's for all the snow plowing and sanding around.
But that includes that big hump at the end of the driveway, right?
Yes.
That's free.
Okay, one more slide. So again, you take that, your city tax bill on a monthly basis, about $46 in the case of that $160,000 home. And again, I ask you, well, is it a good value? Compare that to some of your other utilities and your other monthly bills that you pay. You know, the cable, internet, the smartphone, but those are the ones that pay me every month. You know, a smartphone bill for a family of 2 is $105, but your tax bill, and again, think about all the services you get from the city for $46 a month. With that,
Okay, so this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that has questions or would like to make a comment or would like something further clarified on the presentation?
You said there's a 15% tax increase. I got 21.
so I know you came in right before I explained that. So again, I've had a lot of calls. I've seen it in my taxes too. What you saw is a little bit of a roller coaster ride with property valuation in the city of Detroit Lakes. Big part of that is the county switching their valuation software. So a lot of people saw a dip in 17, and then now in 18, you're seeing that dip come back and then some, and that's having a big impact on a lot of people's property taxes.
Yeah, somehow my house increased $80,000 in a year. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to pass the buck. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that now because your valuation's already set for 18. Again, in March, you'll get a statement for next year's valuation, and that's the time when you want to contest your valuation. Come to the board of review, make your case, find out, you know, why the assessor has it going up that much. But unfortunately, again, a big part of that had to do with that software conversion.
For any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay, nice job, Kelsey, well presented. That public hearing then is closed, and I would entertain a motion to adopt our final 2018 budget and final 2017 tax levy collectible in 18.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yep.
The Finance Committee served as the Budget Committee on this process, and we met several times in August with Kelsey and Pam Slifka, the city accountant, to go over this page by page and line by line. We recommended changes, they were made, we looked at it. We passed a preliminary levy and budget. When was that? In September. In that time, we haven't made any changes to that preliminary budget and levy. So in looking at this today, the Finance Committee recommended that we maintain the preliminary budget and levy that we passed back in September. So I'm going to move that we approve a total city budget of $30,663,038 for calendar year 18, and a levy amount, a total levy amount of $5,114,009. Anyway, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adopt the final 2018 budget and final 2017 tax levy collectible in 18. Further discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Unless there's something else that the city staff has, I think we've covered all the items on the agenda. Dan, you have anything else you want to bring up?
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Madeline?
Thank you.
Dan? Jamie? Matthew?
No, sir.
We don't have the cowboy here. Jay?
Kelsey, you're right, those were fun to see on a monthly basis, what the costs actually go to. That was
Good presentation.
absolutely.
Barb, anything else? Bruce?
Mayor, I would think you and I were the only ones on the council in 2001 when we hit 1.6 million in LGA. They've changed the formula, but I think, to brag a little bit, and then maybe I'll leave that to you in January, but one of the reasons we've gotten hit hard on LGA, not only because the state's reduced it, but because we've been a growing city, and that factors into the formula. So while it's bad news that we've lost LGA, the good news is that we've been a growing city, and that's why it's also gone down.
So, we didn't cause the beginning of the end or anything, or? Thank you. The business of this council has come to a conclusion and the meeting's adjourned.